Welcome to My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Leading the way in buying and selling homes, knowing the current housing market, updating your home without an extensive remodel, or how to stage your home for the perfect sale and more. Portland, Oregon real estate agent Ray Fletcher will bring his 20-plus years experience of real estate, home ownership, and selling homes to you in his bi-monthly podcast. This podcast will be your home headquarters for strategies to achieve success in your real estate investments. Now your host of the podcast, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. My name is Terry Fletcher, your host today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is our premiere episode, and we're going to talk about all things housing, real estate, the real estate market, talking about your home, whether you are a buyer or a seller, or someone just looking to get into real estate and figure out what is your best option. So consider these maybe some strategies in the real estate market. And I'm going to be here today with what I like to call an SME, so a subject matter expert, Ray Fletcher. And Ray is a realtor with More Realty in the Portland metro area in Oregon. And also my brother, which I always appreciate having somebody in the family. And one thing that's really nice about, really having Ray around is the fact that he brings me down to reality when I really like my home shows. You know, the HGTV, you can do anything you want in real estate. And he's like, well, not so fast. Let's look at the reality and make sure that you know exactly what's going on. So we've had conversations just about real estate and home ownership and just where the market is. And I think it's just really kind of a great podcast platform to get some of this information out there. So Ray, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Always good to have you here. So I'm just going to dive right in and just get some of your thoughts on some of the things that are trending right now in the real estate market. So first of all, is the housing market considered strong?
Yes and no. There's a couple things that we have to look at. There's certain segments of the market that are extremely strong, and it all comes down to price. With the increase of rates, the so-called recession we're in, lots of political issues going on right now. There's a few things. If you're in Oregon in particular, if you're in that under 500 price range, your home will sell relatively fast if it's ready to go. If you're over 500, more in that 750 plus range, unless you have something unusual, something very attractive, maybe waterfront, flat land, a shop, or just an outstanding home, you're going to have some market time. The inventory is increased substantially from what we're used to. We're used to 2 weeks. Now we're looking at 2 months, which is really dramatic. And that's kind of it on the buyer and seller side. And then the third aspect of it is investments. Those are very strong. They still got to pencil out. The rates are ridiculous. But if you have cash, rents are going up, housing prices are going down, which obviously doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what happens. People can't afford to buy, but they still have to rent. And that's where we're at this point.
So when you talk about the strong market and it's yes and no. So first of all, to the listeners, just in case anybody, and no, I'm not trying to be funny here. Well, maybe a little bit. When you say 500, you mean thousands, right?
Yes.
Okay. You never know. People be like,
Yeah.
cool, I can get it for this. But no, I knew what you meant. Just never know. But as far as it being strong, would you say it's stronger for a buyer or a seller right now? Because
a buyer. We have shifted into a buyer's market. When I've got listings that are sitting, and when an agent shows it, I can't get that feedback fast enough to see what they thought. Are they going to write an offer? And what are we going to do? A lot of sellers are still in a mindset. Well, they're coming out of it quickly, but they were recently in a mindset that this was 90 days ago. You throw it on the market, you get multiple offers, and you throw it on Thursday, you're pending by Monday.
Well, and that's what we saw in California too, is all of a sudden, what something was going maybe 3 years ago at 500,000, let's put out that number, was almost over 1 million. And I was like, what the heck was going on?
Yeah. And that was just lack of inventory. And the pandemic sure made people realize that where they live is more important because they weren't getting out and they're looking at their environment. And for some people during the pandemic, their environment became very toxic, which sounds very extreme, but It's
Yeah.
true. And they wanted offices and they wanted bigger spaces for their children. And because we spent a lot of time at home. Home improvement was through the roof as well.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I really didn't understand and get my head around why the pandemic affected the housing market so much, because I thought it was going to actually bottom out, and instead it had the reverse effect, right? Because of everybody, basically they were forced to stay at home.
Yeah,
And
craziest thing I've ever seen. It was rates were all-time lows because of the pandemic. Inventory all-time low because people didn't know what to do. School was still in session, but they were at home doing school. You traditionally, I don't want to say traditionally, but if you have two working parents, two children, and everybody's at home,
that's a good time.
there you go.
Facetiously.
Yeah, and everybody needs a quiet space to work.
Right.
And that was in your standard 2,500 square foot home. I mean, think about your home, think about my home. I've got one office and we only have one child. So we have basically 4 bedrooms and an office. So the wife got the office, the child got the room for school, and luckily I can work on the couch. So,
which I think a lot of people did. I'm actually
Yeah.
dealing right now with a situation in healthcare, which is my genre, as you know, and, trying to find HIPAA compliant, privacy compliant for patient record spaces with employees who transition to working from home has been very difficult, as you see them on the couch or see them at the dining room table. Obviously in real estate, there's not necessarily that kind of privacy issue, but it has been a challenge, which leads me into the next question then. So what are some of the must-haves for new buyers out there? I would say the number one thing would be an home office, right?
Yeah, home office. It's really for what I see, new buyers want space. Getting these quaint little bungalows, 1,000 square feet, happy with 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, as long as it was cute, is kind of gone. People now even want 3-car garages more than I've ever seen, and are really holding for that.
Does that exist out there very often? I haven't seen 3-car garages unless it's in $1 million or higher neighborhood.
Yeah, it exists. Yeah, but again, it's just depends on the neighborhood. In Oregon, 3-car, we have more space than you guys do in California. So the footprint of our homes isn't as expensive as yours because your land is worth so much more. And then there's areas in Oregon where these older subdivisions, like 1990s, where they did these small 1,300 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, but the whole neighborhood has RV parking, which is kind of a trip. So in the 90s, camping or boating or whatever there must have been a boom. I don't remember it, but there must have been. So
wow, crazy. So new buyers are looking for that office space. You said 3-car garages. Are big kitchens and updated bathrooms, are those still, or a yard, is that still a big want?
Yes. Well, the turnkey aspect is really huge because if you're spending all this, you're still spending top dollar. Let's just say the house is $600,000 and it's been sitting. Let's say you get a deal and you're still $580,000. Well, the rates are so high that even though you got it for less, your payment is still like the place is $650,000. So there's not a lot of money left to do improvements. So that turnkey aspect, which is bright colors in the house, gray is still very popular. Open floor plan, kitchens somewhat redone, good flooring, newer appliances, probably not original if your house is 10 years old, and then a yard, a usable yard. And then now, again, and schools are huge. And I think people are actually looking at how they handle the pandemic in the schools before they make that decision too.
Well, yeah, actually that makes sense. Well, you brought up a really good point too, as far as, home to value and, the things that have inflated costs versus now it seems like the market is kind of leveling out or going a different direction a little bit. Do you see many people getting fixers or trying to flip a house anymore, or not so much?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. There just isn't a lot.
There isn't a lot. Okay.
The fixer market is still out there, but it's it's more advantageous for a seller just to do it themselves.
Just do it themselves. Okay. Well, it's funny because, again, one of my TV shows I watch,
Yeah.
one of the flipping shows, I'm starting to see people buy flips that are $1 million and trying to make a small profit from that $1 million flip. And I'm like, are you crazy? Used to be, you want to get this house that's been on auction or somebody walked away from a house and now they're trying to put, $100,000 into it and then get a $300-400 profit. Now I'm seeing these really expensive homes where they're trying to say, what can we do to get a 50 or 100,000 profit? And I'm just like, wow, that's really crazy.
Yeah, profit margins have went way down. New construction is nervous. They're sitting. You've got your big companies like your DR Hortons. I'm seeing price reductions on them all the time. Now, again, everything is relative to location, and always keep that in mind on absolutely every conversation you ever have about real estate. Location is everything.
Okay.
And the old thing of buy the worst home in the best neighborhood, well, that still holds true, because everything you do to it's just going to elevate it to the other homes.
Okay.
And then when you're in these better neighborhoods, you typically don't have a lot of fixers, but buyers or investors and flippers now have to adjust their strategies and probably do more work. More sweat equity is where they're going to make their money.
Well, I noticed that you mentioned new builds, and I know that you helped your niece, my daughter, get into her new build, and she's already got, I think 75,000 in equity on that. So thank you for that. You helped us get into, one of our homes in the past too. So, obviously your skill in home buying and really assisting in that is awesome. My question is, when you said that some of the new builds are sitting, again, you said location, depends where it is. Is it because investors bought, or is it just because one of the things I noticed is that, and again, this is 2020, 2021, no matter what summer, my daughter put out there, everybody was overbidding her and they wouldn't even get back to her. She was just trying to get for what the market, what it was listed as. And they're like, oh no, it went for like 50,000 more. But then when she went for the new build, it was like a lottery. She just happened to be at the front of the line. And now she says they have definitely slowed down a little bit.
Right. So a couple of points on that. One, which I think is the biggest one, was buyer fatigue. They got really, really tired of racing to a spot, looking at the house, sometimes standing in line to get into the home to do the open house. That was huge. And then the building cost was huge. So the prices of the homes were insane. You're already overpaying. And then the rate bumping up made a big difference. So it priced a bunch of people out. And then lastly, which I think some people may be overlooking, is we're post-COVID lockdown. And then so think about it. In-person graduations. We haven't done that in 2 years on all aspects of school. And so when my daughter graduated 8th grade, I forgot that actually is a big deal. You actually go sit and watch it and watch 200 or however big her classes, kids walk the stage and grab that little certificate. And the room was packed. Everybody was there, grandparents, and they all were so excited just to be out doing something with their child. And I think about, so now we have high school, college, all these graduations and then graduation parties. And so weekend after weekend, the open houses were just dead. There was nobody showing up. I'd do a 3-hour open house, eat the whole set of cookies I made. So they were not very productive.
Well, you've shown both sides of the pandemic where, when we were locked down, how everybody needed to pivot to what their house was and make it into what they needed. And now you're saying because of the now opening up after the pandemic, it's actually now affected the market as well. It's amazing how one event can really affect the market on both sides. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so that brings me to a question. Is real estate still a good investment overall?
100%. The investment side of real estate, if you can buy a place right. So if you've got the cash, that's the key. If you got the cash and you can buy a rental, it's going to pencil out, because the stock market is a disaster right now. Things will change because election times always change. Things always seem to gas prices magically lower. Rates magically
it's weird
lower.
How that
it's very weird how it happens. And so with that said, the investment side of it, rents are still just as high as ever, creeping up even more because the rates are higher. People can't afford it. So if you can buy a place, the problem is the mindset. The mindset now is people think that they can buy it for less, even though it's still in that hot price range. So you got to think about what it would have cost you 90 days ago and try to get as close to that as possible. Still stay in that mindset because your rents are still going to be just as good.
Yeah, no, that's true. Now, do you look at trends in all markets, meaning California, Oregon, Arizona, all different markets, even New York, not just, focused on Oregon, just to keep current and see what is happening?
Only if I have somebody that's relocating or a reason. So like I do keep track of Arizona market because for some reason, well, not for some reason, we know, big influx of people. I've referred a few people down there. And then I just like to see, I have the agent that I work with down there, keep me posted on what's hot, what's not. Of course, I always used to keep an eye on your market just because you always wanted oceanfront and had some wild ideas on what that's worth.
And I was usually wrong, right?
Way off by like $2 million.
Yeah, I know.
And anytime somebody says I would not pay for that, it's like, well, okay, well then you don't get it.
So then you don't get it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Stop the pipe dream.
And so on a side note, always keep in mind what you're willing to pay does not mean what it's worth. Right. That sounds so simple and so obvious. It's just again, it's odd. It's amazing how many times you have to say that.
Yeah.
But yes and no. I do keep track of the nationwide market if I have a vested interest.
Okay, that's cool. No, and I like to, and I do it only because I watch these stupid home shows, but they're fun to watch. Just seeing what and I realize it's theater, and I realize some of it is, especially when I watch things like $1 Million Listing, you're just like, oh my goodness, really that happens, and you're like, no. It doesn't quite happen that way. Maybe they take a little truth in it and then they expand it to what, it kind of could be or what it kind of couldn't be. Now, just in kind of finishing up this episode and kind of leading into what we'll do on our next episode, you'd mentioned rentals a couple of times, and I definitely want to dive into that on next episode. But it used to be, and I don't really know how to say used to be, I guess, back in the day or whatever, everyone used to say, don't rent because you're throwing your money away. You should have to, buy. But for example, again, I was referenced Summer because she's just such the new buyer. Sure. But when she moved from California for a teaching job to Arizona, we had to find her an apartment, and we found her a 1-bedroom with a den about 8 miles from work. And it was $1,350 plus she wanted to bring her cat. So she had a little cat deposit, plus they charged. There's all these hidden fees, like $15 for a parking spot. And then because her apartment was a 4-plex, she had to split the water, sewer, trash with whoever was in her building. And she shared her building with a family of 6 upstairs. And so she's like, I'm not spending this much. But anyway, her bottom line was just a little over, I would say probably $1,600 for a month for a 1-bedroom plus a den and no garage. Well, now that same apartment, and again, she moved out December into her new place of 2021, just 7 months ago. Is now $2,200 a month. And I just went, holy moly. I mean, again, I don't want to expand on this too much because I want to bring it back next, but what do you say to that in kind of to wrap up this episode as far as, is it still a good idea to buy over rent with how high it is for both? Well, again, so we could end it on this. What did it cost her and friends and family for her to get into her home? Yeah. And you don't even have to answer that. You can keep that as your little cliffhanger, but what does it cost to buy a house? And what's it cost to get in to rent a place? Right. And on that, folks, we are going to continue with our next episode. We're going to bring this to you 2 Thursdays a month. So keep a lookout for your podcast download, and you'll get your notifications and your alert. This has been a great premiere episode, Ray, with so many takeaways from people looking to buy or sell or just get into the real estate market. So I appreciate you participating with me. I'm excited for our next episodes. And anything last closing remarks you have for today? Nope. Okay, cool. All right, everyone, make it a great day and a great rest of your week. And thank you for listening to the Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Drop us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. check out our website and blog at www.rayfletcher.biz or contact Ray directly at realtorrayf@gmail.com to also subscribe to his weekly newsletter.